4 unpublished photographs, $1,000. Anything considered unusual or unique goes for a great deal more. An old piece of tape recording, done when the Beatles were amateurs, was sold in 1994 for $100,000, £78,500. In 1995, a handwritten version of one of their songs went for $200,000, £160,000. All reasonable investments, presumably, judging by the way prices for Beatles memorabilia have soared in the last 10 years. In 1995, Michael Jackson sold the copyright of some 250 Beatles songs, the original Northern Songs collection, to Sony for $95 million, which was more than double what he had paid for them 10 years earlier. Once again, Paul missed out and is still, alas for him, in the position of having to pay royalties if he wants to record songs which he wrote. Proof of their status can be seen in other non-monetary terms. The National Trust in England, which normally cares for historic homes of artistic, architectural, or environmental merit, paid £50,000 in 1995 for 20 Forthland Road, Allerton, Liverpool, a cheap and extremely basic former council house. I grew up in an identical house, so I am pleased to know that a monument to my social background will be preserved forever, but I know it is not its architectural pretensions that will make the National Trust care for it. It just happens to have been lived in for 9 years by the young Paul McCartney. If you visit the British Museum in London, you will also witness another sign that the Beatles have entered our national heritage. Turn right and head for the British Library's manuscripts department. Beside glass-top tables displaying the works of Shakespeare, Dickens, Wordsworth, Keats, and other assorted and long-dead great figures, you will see a table containing 10 original Beatles songs in their own fair handwriting. On most days, the largest crowd in the room is around that table. They are on permanent loan from a certain person, and according to this certain person's will, which he has recently done, they eventually will go to the nation. Okay, it's me. The reason for all this reverence, which would have struck most people as risible back in 1968, is simple. Their music. Of course, the Beatles had cultural and social, geographic and economic influences, but what we remember are the songs. They were recognized as memorable, almost from day one. It took the billions a little longer, but now it is universally accepted that the Beatles gave us almost 200 popular songs, which will be remembered as long as the world has any breath left to hum the tunes. The reason for this new edition is also fairly simple. The last revised edition, back in 1985, finally sold out in 1986, thanks to the Beatles anthology, the biggest, most ambitious, and in some ways the most surprising of all the Beatles events and anniversaries since they parted in 1970. Most Beatles fans knew that some sort of official compilation in pictures and music, sanctioned by the Beatles themselves and produced by their own company, Apple Corps, was on the stocks. Had been for decades, that was the problem. Neil Aspinall, their former roadie, now head of Apple, had had it in his mind since 1970 to somehow tell their story, using their own words, music, and images. Great research had been done to collect together old material. Small advances were made, then lengthy retreats. The basic problem was securing the consent and agreement of all 4 elements, all at the same time. Paul, Ringo, George, and John, and then after his death Yoko, were not always, let us say, the bestest of friends, legally or otherwise. For many years they did not have the same needs and desires, aims and interests. In 1994 it all came together. It started as basically a simple idea, to assemble their own story. But somehow it expanded and exploded, sending off visions and particles all over the place. The result, if you happened to be a Beatles fan, was a feast. Not just a collection, more a cornucopia. First out was the music. 3 double CDs appeared which contained hitherto unknown or unheard early songs, or early versions of known songs and conversations. The first double CD, Anthology 1, came out in November 1995, Anthology 2 and 3 in 1996. There were also 2 singles taken from the CDs, Free as a Bird and Real Love. These were presented as the first Beatles songs for 25 years, in that all 4 Beatles were heard singing and playing together on a new song. Free as a Bird had been originally recorded by John at home in New York in 1977, purely in demo form, but never worked on or completed. By using modern techniques and some imaginative production, Paul, George, and Ringo help John.
To keep listening to this audiobook for free, click the link in the description. It will take you to a free Audible trial where you can listen to this and many other books for free for 30 days.